I'm Coach Mickey, and I'm so glad that you guys have joined us. And if this is your first time joining us here on our YouTube channel, come on in and make yourself comfortable. And for those of you that join us on a regular basis, I am so glad that you do. Many of you have reached out to me for your comments, your questions, and your suggestions of who you'd like to have on. And I'm really excited because I have an opportunity to work with, as you can see, a familiar face on the other side of me, Jodie Moncrief. And I wanted to bring her back because I'm really excited today about she has got a new program that I think is going to benefit each and every one of us in so many ways. And when she told me about it, I said, you've got to come back and be my guest. So I know this is going to empower a lot of individuals and especially a lot of women. So welcome back, Jodie. How are you?
I'm good, thanks. I love hanging out with you.
Well, we have fun, don't we?
Yes.
So I'm excited because you just shared with me that you've got a new program titled How to Be a Badass. And that really intrigued me when you told me that information. So I was excited to have you come back and share this with all of our circle of friends that tune in to us on a regular basis.
Yes. And I have a whole list of 5 things either to help you be a badass, let you know you're a badass, or you're thinking, I need to be a badass.
True, true, because I think a lot of times we are so afraid to really let our true self shine, because we always walk on, well, I know for anyone's sort of situations, you walk on eggshells, and I'm thinking, why do we do that? Why do we walk on eggshells to appease everybody else? They're not doing it on the other hand. And then you walk away going, why didn't I say something? Why didn't I really express my true feelings of what I
Yes,
wanted to do and say? So I,
yes.
I love this. So how could we break this down? Like, what if somebody wanted to start today, what would be the best thing for them?
Okay, so it's funny that you brought that up, walking on eggshells, because the number one way you know you're a badass is you don't walk on eggshells. We are so conditioned to be walking on eggshells. We're so conditioned, I'm going to say, as women, to please everyone. And it's all about everybody else and not us. So, number one, a badass knows she has value. And she's not concerned with, well, she knows she was programmed to put everyone first, but she's not now concerned with pleasing others. She's good at setting and holding boundaries. And I know that's a tough one. And she forgives herself and others, right? So we all know that there's a lot of stuff back in our childhood that affects us now. A badass looks back and really looks at that with a perspective of, how is that affecting me now? Is it affecting me now? And really, really working on it, doing some deep digging. So the second part, a badass takes care of herself. Self-care. Why wouldn't we? Goes back again, because we were taught to take care of everyone else. It's not good to put yourself first. That's being selfish, and we don't want to be selfish. So badasses are good at self-care. And here's another one. This is a gigantic one that all of us deal with on a regular basis. Badasses control their negative self-talk.
Hmm.
We all have it. We all have it. Are we controlling it, or are we letting it control us? A badass controls her negative self-talk. She learns to make herself a priority. A badass makes herself a priority. Again, back to, we're taught to, it's all about everyone else. And this is making herself a priority and being selfish in a very positive way. Did you have a question, Mickey? Or did
No,
you?
I'm just listening
Okay.
to you because I'm just kind of absorbing this and taking it
Okay.
all in.
Okay.
But with some of the things that you're talking about, I really want to touch on because they're very profound in what you're saying. And I love that because a lot of times we let that little voice in our head go, well, I need to do this first. I need to take care of that first. I need to take, and we put everybody else as a priority. Now, there is times where you have to do that, and I do understand there is elements and time frames and situations where you do have to put other people ahead of things. But I would say there's other times too where other things could be put aside so you can kind of focus on yourself to be able to move forward, in your own self-growth, and
Yes.
it made me think of and you, yeah, I know you've heard it and I know you've said it, and I'm just going to reiterate what you've said, over my podcast, or you maybe hear is it reminds me of the plane thing. It's like they say, when the oxygen mask comes down, put your oxygen mask on first, so then you can take care of everybody else. Because if you cannot taking care of yourself, what good are you for everyone else? And it really kind of flows that in that direction. But we don't see it like that because we're so geared to taking care of everyone first, and
Yes.
then trying to take care of ourselves.
Yes. And we're so programmed. That's what we have to realize. Badasses know. I was programmed not to be a badass. I was programmed to take care of everyone else. I was programmed to take care of everyone first, right? So the other thing is, a badass can say no and not add an explanation.
Yeah. Yeah.
And saying no is, like they say, saying yes to yourself, saying no to the outside is, and knowing when to say no, and really being okay of saying, no, that won't work for me, or no, just no, because we get so uncomfortable. A badass trusts herself. Mm-hmm. She knows who she is, and she knows what she stands for, and she trusts herself. She trusts her intuition, and she exudes and feels confident. Now, this is, everything can go up and down, but I'm talking about just overall confidence. So here's the other one. Number 3, a badass is not afraid to feel her feelings. I did not feel for a long time, and I was afraid to feel pain, and I would do my favorite self avoidance patterns would be, say, drinking too much, eating too much, shopping too much. That was my way to numb out and not to feel. But the last couple of years, I've done a lot of work on myself, and I found that us badasses, it's the opposite of what we think. We grew up thinking we're weak if we're emotional, or we're weak if we are crying. That is strength, to let ourselves feel the darn feelings and not numb out, and not, badasses don't feel like they have to be busy every second of the day. Badasses, they make time for doing absolutely nothing. Absolutely nothing.
I think the hard part about that is a lot of times when we sit down and we go and take a break and take a breath and go and maybe make a cup of coffee or a cup of tea, you're sitting there looking around the room going, okay, what do I need to do next? What do I need to do next? And it's just like, I know I'm forgetting something, because I think we're so accustomed to being in such high gear all the time that when you sit down and finally take a minute to yourself, you're like, I must be missing something, because this isn't
yes
right.
And it's again, our programming. Are you being productive? Are we being productive? Yeah. And you know what? Sometimes doing nothing is being productive.
Yeah. Yeah.
So the next part of this is that badasses are aligned with their values. So in my course, they identify or confirm their values, and they are able to make decisions based on them. And I'll give an example. I just made a list. I don't know why this came to me, but I just made a list of all the jobs I've ever had since I was 13 or 15. I think it was 15. And I made a list, and I thought of how many times I went against my value system and it didn't feel right. And I took the job, and a couple times I got fired. Duh. It just was not a match, and I was not at my highest productivity. So really matching our values. When we feel uncomfortable, or we're depressed, or we're feeling emotional, a lot of times it goes back to our values, that we're going against our values in some way, we've made a decision that just didn't sit well with our values, and we didn't follow our gut, which is really important. So because she knows her values, a badass knows what she stands for. Like I said, she knows who she is.
Yeah.
So the next part is,
Hang
yeah,
on one second. I want to ask you.
yeah,
So let's go back and let's get a couple examples. Excuse me,
okay.
to our circle of friends, like values. Like when would you go back on your values? And that way they can kind of see, and understand that a little bit
Okay.
more.
Okay, that's good. Okay, so this job, and I'm telling you, it wasn't a long time ago, it was probably 12 years ago. I took a job with not only a male chauvinist pig, okay, and I
Awesome.
knew he was. And my confidence was low, and I thought, well, this is all I can get. I have to settle. A badass doesn't settle.
Yeah.
A badass does not settle. So, and this guy would smoke in the office.
Yeah.
We back even 12 years ago, we had non-smoking offices. And so going against my values, that was one of the jobs I was fired from. Shocker, right? So my value of health, having somebody smoke while you're in there, right?
Yeah.
And the whole male chauvinist pig is, my value of freedom, independence. And that wasn't happening there. Does that make sense? Is that a good example?
Oh yeah, no, that's a great example. And I think a lot of times people think they're stuck. Like you said, you thought this is all I could get, or this is all. So you settled for this situation in this environment when it wasn't good for your health, wasn't good for your emotional health, and to just finally go, well, you know what? It was a blessing in disguise that you got fired, because instead of you having to just, quit or whatever. But let's back up a little bit. Think about the people that don't have the strength or don't think they have the strength. You always have a choice. If you're not happy, get out of it. If it's not fitting with your values, don't stay there. Whether it's a job, whether it's a relationship, whether it's friendship, regardless of what it is, friends. If they're doing things that you don't agree with and don't fit with your integrity is, you still have the choice to go. You don't have to stay.
Yes.
Nothing's holding you there. You're not
Yes.
tied down.
Yes. And we know, we really do know. And when we try to hold on to something so, tightly, like I'm thinking of people that I know that are either have been or still are, should be retired, but they're not.
Yeah.
And they're just holding on to the pension, or they're holding on to getting the maximum for Social Security or whatever. And in the meantime, they're dying where they are, and they're just, they go into work and they dread Monday mornings.
Yeah.
And guess what happens? It'll happen. I'm telling you, every single time they'll either be the first one to get laid off, or the company closes or something, and then they're thinking, oh, I'm a victim. You knew it. You just, stood there holding on, bleeding hands, right? And knowing darn well, but wanting the money, making money or security more of a priority than you and your health.
Yeah, well, I think it comes down to one simple question. Are you surviving or are you living?
Right, or thriving.
Yeah.
Living, thriving, or surviving.
Yeah. And there's a big difference, I mean, we can survive, the only thing you need to survive is air, water, and food. I mean, everything else is basically a choice of what you decide to bring into your life to make it a bonus, right?
Exactly.
So that's
Exactly.
but living's
Exactly.
different. Yeah. Yeah.
Yes.
So okay,
Yes.
I want you get a lot to cover. So I want to move on to the other ones because you got some great stuff here.
Okay.
I really
Yes.
do.
Yes. Thanks. I got one last one. A badass has a daily practice for herself, and she accesses her intuition on a regular basis. Okay. So that could be as simple as, 5 minutes of just being alone in the morning. And I'm thinking about your outside where you have your little table and chairs, sitting there just really like doing even just a 5-minute meditation. And the reason
Yeah.
I say this is because it's taken me so long, so darn long, to learn how to meditate, because I'm got the energy and I don't want to sit there. I don't want to sit there and do the meditation. So even 5 minutes a day, actually, I not cheating, but in the shower, because we do it every day, I do my meditation and I do grounding and I do some exercises that really, keep me in touch with who I am, because it's a crazy world out there.
Yeah.
Crazy. And so, whatever that is, whether it's some yoga, like I know somebody that does like 20 minutes of yoga, a 10-minute meditation, and a 5-minute walk. Whatever you can do, it just makes a difference on how you start your day. It really does.
Yeah.
And the other thing is following our intuition or our gut. We talked about that with your values, but just following our intuition, our who we are, our real self, our best self, our highest self, what God's self, whatever you want to call it, following the intuition and accessing it daily. And I think that's really, really one of the most important things that we can do. And the other thing is adding joy to our lives, adding things we like,
Mhm.
and even just thinking about things that we like makes a difference, adding more joy to our life is so much simpler than it seems. You hear, oh, add more joy to your life, add more happiness. But just the things you like, the simple things you like, adds more joy. And that's basically, you want to be a badass, that's what it is.
I like the fact you said it's just simple stuff, because there are things every day that you have some things you're in control of, other things you just gotta, you're always in control of your actions, but there's outside elements that sometimes, you have to just kind of take in and decide what to do with it at that point. However, but I will not. I will not chintz on a good cup of coffee. That's my little joy. I mean, I am a coffee snob. If I will not drink a bad cup of coffee, because that makes me happy. I like a
Yep.
really good cup of coffee. I like going down to the beach. You and I make a point of trying to get down there at least twice a week, and just be down by the ocean, and we sit there and get our 3 to 5 minutes of just meditating or being quiet.
Mhm.
And you could do it in your car. We had this conversation before on the other YouTube, that one that you did prior to this, was I told you a lot of times, as a mom, I'm busy running around taking my kid to football practice, or I'm doing something else. And there's that time where I have nothing to do. So I just sat in my car and I brought my notebook, I brought my journal. Sometimes I just played music, and I just parked way off in the parking lot just to have that time to myself, because I had to be there anyway. I didn't,
That's
there was no requirement that said, I had to be there for the full 2 hours, watching, which I did. I loved watching him, and I did, but I would take the first 10, 15 minutes and just have it to myself, and
you
then
by
go back.
yourself.
Yeah, first 10, 15 minutes,
And
maybe they're doing warm up. You're not missing
yes,
anything.
yes. And I'm glad you brought that up, because a badass, um, that could be part of the daily exercise, the daily practice
Right.
is writing, journaling. And it doesn't have to be about anything. It can just
Yeah.
be nothing. It could just be the way you're feeling, and you can write it over and over and over. There's just getting it out of our head. And the main thing, the whole goal here is to be, you know, more ourselves, and listen to ourselves, and pay attention to ourselves, and
Yeah.
live for ourselves, and be selfish in the way of self-care.
Yeah. Yeah, no, I agree. And I think that's a really good insight, because like a lot of times we forget, and a lot of women go, well, I can't think of myself as a bad. Yes, you can. Sit up nice and straight. Take a deep breath. Be in touch with who you are. And more importantly, be in touch with what you don't want, and,
Yes.
start eliminating those, out of your life. When you said, make your boundaries, if something doesn't sit, you don't always have to say yes. There's no rule book that says we have to say yes every time time somebody asks us to do something, see if it fits
Right.
within your time frame, and
Yes.
you and don't explain why you can't. We
No,
always do that. It's like, I can't because of this. First of all, nobody cares. Second of
there's no
all,
need.
you don't have to explain. You
There's no
don't.
need. There's no need for an
Yeah.
explanation. That's such a good point. And here's another thing. Badasses do not over apologize.
Yeah.
Okay. And then something else you mentioned about deep breathing. That's another thing, part of the daily practice. I mean, taking 10, this sounds just like so simple and so like, don't we do this? Shouldn't we do this? 10 deep breaths a day, or 10 deep breaths 3 times a day or 2 times a day, whatever you will commit to and do, even if it's 5 minutes, it
Yeah.
doesn't matter. The important thing is that you do it for yourself and you're in the quiet space.
I love it. So we're going to wrap it up right now, but tell everybody how they can reach you and if they want to work with you and maybe get onto your program, because I know you do a lot of stuff virtually. Matter of fact, I think you do all of it virtually. So
Yep.
yeah. So how can our circle of friends find you?
Yes. I have being a badass, becoming a badass. I have that coming up in a couple months, that program. And I have them on different days so people can do it, if they work during the day and they want to do it on a Saturday. I have different options, but
Okay.
the way they can reach me is Transform Your Life OC, Orange County, because that's where I live, and that was the only one that was available on the somebody
That's
already had
creative.
Transform Your Life. So I took transformyourlife.com, and yeah, that's how to reach me.
Awesome. And everything's going to be embedded in the podcast. Excuse me, guys. In the YouTube channel.
Yeah.
So we are so glad that you joined us today. Thank you so much for bringing your insight and your information and offering a little bit more joy for us to be able to move forward in our lives. I always appreciate you, and I always love the fact that you're always evolving. Not just what you bring to everybody you work with, but I know you're always evolving yourself. So I know you walk the talk. You really do. What you teach and what you do, I know you're doing within yourself. So
Yeah.
thank you for
Thank
that.
you. Thank you.
So, you guys, thank you so much for joining us. Again, please subscribe. If you want to share this with some of your friends or somebody you think that might be able to benefit from this, please do. I appreciate that. For those of you that have been reaching out to me, you can find my mugs, and you guys can find this on the Coach Mickey and Friends website, and you can go there and order that. And as you guys know, this proceeds go towards my Be Fearless scholarship for young women. So I will give that at the end of the school year. So the more you guys support it, the more I can give away to some people that really deserve it. So
That's so awesome.
yeah, thank you. So I love you guys. Remember, the most courageous thing you can be is yourself. And I love the fact that you guys, please always be fearless, be flawless, be you. I love you guys. I will see you next week. Bye.
Bye.